What up, tribe? It's here, Raji, and I am tapping in with another Tribe Talk Lilith Interlude. And today we will be discussing Chapter 3 out of Women Who Run with Wolves and how we can tie that into our own personal experiences as well as, just life in general. Just a little chit chat in what this chapter means for us. And I gotta a lot. Actually, I feel like the chapters get longer and longer all over. But yesterday chapter 2 was heavy. Today is a little bit lighter, but still very important if you ask me. So chapter 3 is called Noising Out the Facts, the Retrieval of Intuition as Initiation. So how she starts this off is she discusses this story about this woman or this girl who's becoming a woman, and as she goes through this point, she is given what some would consider a matrilineal source of intuition through a doll, and the doll is explained in terms that I was kind of shocked to see come out of this book. Like, she discussed hoodoo in this book, this chapter. I didn't see that one coming. I ain't even gonna lie to y'all. I was shocked about that. And she discussed the idea of making dolls and etc. So yeah, it was really interesting. Now, again, so as she talks about this young girl that is going through the forest with this doll who is seemingly intuition from her matrilineal line, it gives you the idea of how she gets back to herself and how she goes through life in terms of sorting through what she sees, knows, feels, etc. Right? Okay, so let's just start it off. So it's called The Doll in Her Pocket. Vasilisa the Wise. So it starts as saying, intuition is the treasure of a woman's psyche. It is like a divining instrument and like a crystal through which one can see with uncanny interior vision. It is like a wise old woman who is with you always, who tells you exactly what the matter is, tells you exactly whether you need to go left or right. It is a form of the one who knows, O la que sabe, the wild woman. So the story of Vasilisa is an old Russian tale about women's intuition and a few, like she says, essential bones astray. And she says here, as women, we call upon our intuition and instincts in order to sniff things out. We use all of our senses to wring the truth from things, to extract nourishment from our own ideas, to see what there is to see, to know what there is to know, and to be keepers of our own creative fires, and to have intimate knowing about life, death, life cycles of all nature. This is an initiated woman. Okay? And she goes further on to talk about the idea that once there was not. So it's a paradoxical phrase which to alert the soul of the listener that this story basically takes place between worlds where nothing is as it seems. So it's not to be considered actual, like 3D elements. So just kind of like the Bluebeard story, you gotta take it with like the word is on the tip of my tongue. Symbolism. I'm just gonna say symbolism. So basically, Vasilisa, her mother dies, and as her mother dies, which is again like a representation of her youthful intuition or youthful life, she gives her this doll, and she says, should you lose your way or be in need of help, ask this doll what to do. You will be assisted. Keep the doll with you always, and don't tell anyone about her. Feed her when she is hungry. This is my mother's promise to you, my blessing on you, dear daughter. So I take that part when she was like, don't tell everybody. Like, you shouldn't tell everybody what's on your mind. Like, everybody don't need to know every 5 seconds what your intuition is telling you. There will be elements of people that you can share certain things with, and you will know those people. Like, you'll know your people, like she kind of explains later on in the chapter. But I thought that was a very interesting point where the mother was like, don't tell anyone about her. You can't be out here like giving all the sauce to any and everybody. So she goes off, and the child and the father, which is the father, is her patrilineal intuition, and they mourn the mother, like the mother aspect of it. And here comes along the stepmother, which is life's teachers, not necessarily the shadows of growth, of growing into a young lady or, a young woman. And there's a stepmother and there's daughters, right? And initially these things start off with a mask, and then they reveal themselves. So they send her into the woods to find light. So that's basically saying you go through something in life that kind of taps your ass into reality. Like, you wake up out of this idea, because the mother that passes away is the too good mother. So, like, the idea that, life is all sunshine and rainbows, we're walking on the sunshine always, and, your intuition is what you see, is what you get, and in passing through those phases of growing, you develop somewhat of an intuition. Now, this is going to be heavily based on how you were raised, generational lineage, life lessons, etc., early on in life, right? So the stepmother and the stepsister's daughters are representative of life, like teaching you shit that is not necessarily like walking on sunshine type moments, okay? So they send her into the woods, right, to go get wood or light or coal or whatever from this witch, which is essentially called Baba Yaga. And Baba Yaga is like kind of the intuition you develop in life after you've been through the fucking trenches. The dark night of the soul type of thing, because she does have to walk through darkness and use somewhat of that inner knowing that she was equipped with from her youth to get through the dark night of the soul. Like, then she's got these shadows that she also has to deal with that sent her into the darkness. Like, so if you read it, like, it's a whole little story about the stepmother and how, like, the daughters, and how she goes to the Baba Yaga's home, and the Baba Yaga takes her through these initiations, and she beats it. And it's essentially because she does have tools from her youth to aid her in making decisions and doing certain things. So she does come equipped with some tools, even though she did, she if she faced some shadows, right? Okay, so this is where I begin highlighting. So it says Vasilisa is a story of handing down the blessing of women's power of intuition from mother to daughter, from generation to the next. This great power, intuition, is composed of lightning fast inner seeing, inner hearing, inner sensing, and inner knowing. Over generations, these intuitive powers become as buried streams within women, buried by disuse and unfounded charges of disrepute. Okay? So we are born with certain things. I think certain things do follow us in like generation to generation. Like, I don't know. It's just some shit like you just know. And it does carry like in the DNA line wherever, even if you weren't like necessarily taught it. It's like some inner knowing. Let me see. Now, She goes on to say, initiation is enacted by completing certain tasks. In this tale, there are 9 tasks for the psyche to complete. They focus on learning something of the ways of the old wild mother. Through completion of these tasks, a woman's intuition, that knowing being who walks wherever women walk, looking at all things in their lives and commenting on the truth of it all with swift accuracy, is reset into women's psyche. The goal is a loving and trusting relationship with this being whom we have come to call the knowing woman, the essence of the wild woman archetype. So the first task is allowing the too good mother to die. So seeing the good in every single person and allowing yourself to be somewhat of a martyr won't serve you. Okay? So the psychic test of this stage is accepting that ever watchful, hovering, protective psychic mother is not adequate as a central guide for one's future instinctual life. The too good mother dies. Taking on the task of being on one's own, developing one's own conscience about danger, intrigue, politics, becoming alert by oneself for oneself, letting die what must die. As the too good mother dies, the new woman is born. So another concept of pushing the baby bird out of the nest, and they have to fly. So you go on this life's journey with your mother's intuition, your grandmother's intuition, things that you learn, from generations passed down. In all of our lives as daughters, there is a time when the good mother of the psyche, the one which served us appropriately and well in earlier times, turns into a too good mother, one which by virtue of her overly safeguarding values begins to prevent us from responding to new challenges and thereby to deeper development. For some girls, however, the process of developing a new, more shrewd inner mother, the mother called intuition, was only half completed then. And women so inducted have wandered for years wishing for and wanting the complete initiatory experience and patching themselves up as best they could be. What they say, experience brought sense is the best sense. Experience is life's best teacher for some people. The arresting of a woman's initiation process occurs for various reasons, such as when there has been too much psychological hardship early in one's life, especially when there has been no consistent, good enough mother in the early years. The initiation may also be stalled or uncompleted because there is not enough tension in the psyche. The too good mother has the stamina of a formidable weed and lives on, waving her leaves and overprotecting her daughter, even though the script says exit stage left now. In this situation, women often feel too timid to proceed into the woods and resist it all they can. So, too much of a good thing, you gotta have balance. That's what I get from that. Like, you could be thrust into like PTSD type moments because your life in the earlier years you were traumatized, but you can also have your growth stunted by not being allowed to develop instincts and have certain life experiences, right? Thus, Vasilisa's initiation begins with learning to let die what must die. This means to let die the values and attitudes within the psyche which no longer sustain her. Like, good for your experience, good for you, but not necessarily good for me type energy. That's based on your experience. Now I got to go find my own experience, right? Especially to be examined are those long-held tenets which make life too safe, which overprotect, which make women walk with scurry instead of stride. A confident stride and head held high, shoulders back, no humps, sure, knowing, saunter almost, I like to think it's a little saunter with a sway of the hips, just a confidence in oneself, as opposed to more timid energy. That's just my thoughts. While I do not in any way advise that a woman ought to throw herself in tumultuous or abusive situations. I do mean she must set for herself as something in life that she is willing to reach for and therefore take risks for. It is through this process that she sharpens her intuitive power. Yeah, like a lot of us have been traumatized into like our intuition, and some of us were allowed to ease into it, and again others of us were greatly sheltered to the point where we don't know that the wolf is the wolf. Some of us know the wolf is the wolf, but we think we can take on the wolf, and others of us, like that type team. One who lives even deeper in the psychic wilderness, one who is both escort and teacher. So she's talking about the internal mother. And when for us, which was so apt for us when we were young, for another kind of mother. So again, you need one who lives deeper in the psychic wilderness, one who is both escort and teacher. She is loving, but she is also fierce and demanding, right? Like the wolf mom. At first, the wolf mom nurtures you, but when it's time for you to learn how to hunt, she don't let you, I often find myself telling my daughter, tighten up, be more aware. You got to follow your intuition, slow down, pay attention to your surroundings, like that type of energy. Yet, if we merge with the too good mother for too long, our lives and our gifts for expression fall into the shadows and we become scant instead of strong. So, the too good mother is the voice that says, oh, don't say that. You can't do that. Well, you certainly are not one of my children, friends, peers, if you do that. Or it's dangerous out there. Or who knows what will become of you if you insist on leaving this warm nest. Or you're just going to humiliate yourself, or even more insidious still. Pretend you are taking risks, but secretly stay here with me. So too much of a good thing, too much of a bad thing can hurt you either way. Okay? So we must be able to see that for the intuitive psyche to be invigorated, the nice hovering protector must recede. Or perhaps more accurately, we eventually find ourselves pushed outside of that cozy T, not because we planned it that way, not because we were completely ready. No one is ever completely ready, but because there is something wanting. Wait, my bad, y'all. But because there is something waiting for us at the edge of the woods, and it is our fate to meet it. Like, you gotta be ready to go through life experiences. Like, you gotta be ready to go on your journey. But you also must be well equipped from both arenas. I believe from the patrilineal arena and from the matrilineal arena. You can never have too much of both. So for the too good mother, she must be willing to feel anxious at times. Otherwise, she might as well have stayed in the nest. So you got to be ready to face life in a way of you can't be too sure of everything. Trying new things, meeting new people, discovering yourself, being comfortable with your shadows. We are off the teat and learning to hunt. There is a wild mother waiting to teach us, but in the meantime, the second task is to hold on to the doll while we learn its uses. So that's not to say to abandon all you have known, because you do have that doll, that inner knowing from your ancestors and your elders and your lineage to kind of give you an idea, but you also got to develop, your own sense of security, your own sense of self, so that you can be able to write your own story. The second task, exposing the crude shadow, which is learning even more mindfully to let go of the overly positive mother, finding that being good, being sweet, being nice will not cause life to sing. Vasilisa becomes a slave, but it does not help. Like it was like a Cinderella type story, if y'all wondering. The mama and the stepmama was mean to her, basically. But this is her shadow, okay? Experiencing directly one's own shadow nature, particularly the exclusionary, jealous, and exploitative aspects of self, the stepmother and the stepsisters, okay? Acknowledging these unequivocally, making the best relationship one can with the worst parts of oneself, letting the pressure build between who is wait a minute now, between who one is taught to be and who one really is, ultimately working toward letting the old self die and the new intuitive self be born. The stepmother and stepsisters represent the underdeveloped but provocatively cruel elements of the psyche. There are shadow elements, meaning aspects of oneself which are considered by the ego to be undesirable or not useful, and are therefore regulated to the dark. In this stage of initiation, a woman is harassed by the petty demands of her psyche, which exhort her to comply with whatever anyone wishes. That is, to be ourselves. Okay, so she says, compliance causes a shocking realization that must register by all women. That is, to be ourselves causes us to be exiled by many others, and yet to comply with what others want causes us to be exiled from ourselves. It is a tormenting tension, and it must be borne, but the choice is clear. So I feel from there is saying, like, you can't make you ain't gonna be able to make nobody completely happy. And in your like path in life to try to make everybody around you happy, try to please everybody, make yourself look good in the eyes of other people's perspective, you basically kill off your own soul, confirmation, your own self. And through this stage of the initiation, like, you realize that, you know what I'm saying? You're so worried about what everybody else think, and what about what you think? What about what you want? What will ultimately make you happy? So you cannot live your life to please others, right? Because what about you? In fairy tales, the role of the stranger or the outcast is usually played by the one who is most deeply connected to the knowing nature. Now, hold on. So she also, now I got to that point, I didn't highlight these, but she says Vasilisa is disenfranchised, for she inherits and is inherited by a family that cannot understand or appreciate her. As far as they're concerned, she is unnecessary. They hate and revile her. They treat her as the stranger, the untrustworthy one. The step family in the psyche is different from the soul family, for it is of the superego, the aspect of psyche which is structured according to each particular society's expectations, healthy or not for women. I want to call her Valisa. Yeah. Oh, God. Can't we just call her Miss V? Vasilisa. Step family is an intrapsychic ganglia which pinches off the nerve to life's vitality. They enter as a chorus of unredeemed hags who taunt, you can't do it, you're not good enough, you're not bold enough, you're stupid, insipid, vacant, you don't have time, you're only good for simple things, you're only allowed to do this much and no more, give up while you're ahead. As Vasilisa is not yet fully conscious of her powers, she allows this evil crimp in her life. And in order to regain her life, something different, something life-giving must occur. So to me, that's when like spirit be like, all right, let's switch it up. A lot of times for us as young women, that's like graduating high school, going to college, and realizing amongst other people that different people, places, cultures, life outside of our essential bubble exists. Like, boom, life slaps you in the face. I remember when I first went to college, like, I was only in Auburn, but I like cried. Like, if you know where I'm from, like Auburn University is like literally like maybe 30 minutes. But it felt so different. I felt so like alone, but I met so many different people. And like as I got older, I got less afraid to venture out, I had someone one time, they were like, you're very cultured. But like that's at first, I was scared as hell to like get out there in the world. I was afraid. And but what's crazy is like I was more accepted in that circle of people. you know what I'm saying, than people that I actually knew for years. Okay. However, to see into or through something requires intuition, also the strength to stand upon what one sees. Like Vasilisa, we may try to be nice when we ought to be knowing. We may have been taught to set aside acute insight in order to get along. However, the reward for simply being nice in oppressive circumstances is to be mistreated all the more. Yeah, like, no, you cannot do that. That's so fucking true. Like, you may as well stand up for yourself and fight for your right. You know what I'm saying? Especially if it's what's right, because only thing people gonna do to you that are used to like bullying and belittling people is they, you know, you make yourself the martyr for their ass, and they don't be appreciative. They will continue to want to rule over you. So stand your ground out the gate. You know, assert your own foundation. I was gonna say assert your own dominance, but I don't want to make it seem like, you know, you got to. But kind of like with a kid or like a dog or an animal, you know what I'm saying? You gotta let it be known. Like, it's just certain shit I ain't gonna go for. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm not with that. Basically, don't handle me like that. You gotta have your boundaries in the beginning. You know what I'm saying? Because it don't serve you not to. The family in which she was raised can be painfully exacerbate. Hold on. Exacerbate. Exacerbate? The fuck? I'm finna spell this out for y'all. Exacerbate. 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 Exaggerate? Exaggerate? That natural but moderate naysaying aspect in the psyche. For instance, women who are raised in families that are not accepting of their gifts often set off on tremendously big quests. Over and over, they do not know why. For show. They feel that they must have 3 PhDs, or that they have to hang upside down from Mount Everest, or that they must execute all manner of dangerous, time-consuming, and money-eating endeavors to try to prove to their families that they have worth. Now, will you accept me? No. Okay, sigh. Watch this. Baby, that's so motherfucking true. The overachiever, like, we couldn't even make C's. Like, we would get spankings for making C's. We would get put on punishment. It's like high achiever type shit. Like, high achiever. And if you're not like a high achiever, you know, and for some families, in like, you got to be a high achiever how they think you should be a high achiever, or they don't like recognize your high achievement. It's diabolical. It's fucking diabolical. The women in my family are educated, and it is a certain standard. And I don't know how everybody else's family is, but I just speak about my family. I would consider my family to be boule. In the terms of, you know what I'm saying, you're a part of a sorority or some type of secret society type deal. Or, you know, you're very all into sports, or you're into politics, or you in some type of upper echelon type shit. And there are those of us that decided to do things a little differently, and it is painfully obvious. Like, it is painfully obvious that they have a certain L to that which doesn't appeal to the standard of what they think should happen. So a lot of the girls in my family, like I said, high achievers, just everybody trying to do their team. You know what I'm saying? And congratulations, shout out. But in terms of, you do get met with a little bit of resistance when you step outside of the box. And I personally, from my own personal experience, like, I feel like I've achieved amazing things. Now, I may have didn't achieve it in the timeline that they wanted me to. Like, I see the vast difference of when I was doing everything people wanted me to do and I was going on the lane that they wanted me to go, versus when I stepped outside of the box and decided to do other things. I was met with a certain jealousy from one side because they couldn't do what they wanted to do. Then I was met with a certain ick from one side because I was just no longer following the path that they created for all of us. So I've always been kind of like a weird in between black sheep type deal. But I did try. Like, I did, baby. I got married. I had the house. I had the cars. I got, I didn't have kids before marriage. Like, I went to college. I did the da-da-da-da, and, they didn't accept me. And there's also, again, like a disdain from others, so it's an interesting space to be as a woman, on that note. Like, they accept you as an artist, but only if you're an artist like this, You got to do the art in this way. Or they'll accept you as a business owner, but only if you do business like this. Or do you have a backup plan? Do you have this? This is the only way that we will support you. You have to do it this way. It has to make sense to us. And if it doesn't make sense, we don't support it. That's how I imagine they mind, like they voice and they mind work. And, like I said, they've achieved great things. They've achieved amazing feats in life. And they appear to be very neurotypical. And, that's the path. That's the way. But, yeah, shout out to everybody who said, nah, I want to go on the path less traveled. And I don't give a fuck what you think about it. Shout out to that. Shout out to the wild women. Because anyway... So, to submit without complaint is heroic seeming, but in fact causes more and more pressure and conflict between the two oppositional natures. Because it's basically saying Vasilisa does the... I got to get her a nickname. Okay? Does this everyday chores without complaint. She says, we have to leave the chorus of detractors and plunge into the woods. There is no way to both stay and go. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, I had to go on my own journey. I had to, do some other shit. Because I was just kind of fucking over it. Nobody really seemed happy to me. It was, performance-based. And I just wanted to do some different shit. For all intents and purposes. So I had to make a decision. I did. Wait a minute. Hold on. Y'all. Okay, so I was just trying to do, two things. Let me go here, because don't play with me like that. I did not know you could do that. That's so interesting. Okay, hold on, y'all. Pause for just, 2 seconds. Wait, it's not available here. Child. Hold on, you guys. My apologies. Should I cut this part out? I don't know. Okay, I don't know what they're saying. Oh, maybe the watermelon. I'm gonna keep that because that just let y'all know I'm a real girl. Both grocery shopping online, confirming an order, and reading a book and talking about it. This is what Tribe Talk is all about. Okay. I'm not going to cut that out either. So, anyway, yeah, like, you gotta do something different. And I feel like everybody, like, you be kind of, like, outcasted from your family if you do something different. Like, and I wish they would say they're not like that, because they are. I love them all the same, you know what I'm saying? But that's how they are. But if you ain't going to 4 years against some type of degree, if you ain't joining some type of sorority, and I'm just speaking from a woman's perspective, I ain't speaking from the guys in my family. But if you ain't get some type of degree, and it got to be a particular degree. If you don't, like, got yourself a 9-to-5, or you ain't been at some type of job, or you ain't in the military, you know what I'm saying? Like, they be looking at you like, And not everybody, but, it's always a little, that's different. So anyway, so she cannot develop by standing around being everyone's boot jack. Women who try to make their deeper feelings invisible are deadening themselves. The fire goes out. It is a painful form of suspended animation. Conversely, and perhaps somewhat perversely, when the fire is put out, it helps to snap Vasilisa out of her submission. It causes her to die an old way of life and to step with shivers into a new life, one which is based on older, wiser kind of inner knowing. I feel like when I reached a point, and when I had, I only had one child at the time, and when I got ready to divorce my ex-husband, it was like, woof, like it was different. I didn't expect, as a matter of fact, I had avoided. That's why people be like, oh, single moms, like, I got married. I did everything right, like, in my opinion, you know what I'm saying, in terms of process. And I still ended up a single mom. And it was very shocking, and it is in this moment, like I said, that you are pushed into a new life, and you become, like, that was like my first, adult dark night of the soul, like, learning type of situation. But you can't judge a book by its cover. The third task is navigating in the dark. Learning to develop sensitivity as regards direction to the mysterious, unconscious, and relying solely on one's inner senses. Learning the way back home to the wild mother, heeding the doll's directions, learning to feed intuition, feeding the doll, letting the frail know nothing, maiden die, even more, shifting power to the doll, i.e. your intuition. Truth. You go through life experiences and you grow up, and then you be like, oh, hold the fuck up. Wait a minute. Okay. In Vasilisa's case, the doll represents La Vidacita, the little instinctual life force that is both fierce and enduring. No matter what mess we are in, it lives out a life hidden within us. She then goes on to talk about the idea of dolls, which I thought was very interesting, which she definitely brought up hoodoo, which I was like, oh, okay, interesting. Feel me? And she talks about the mandrake root, which represents, to rustic healers, it represents the human body with the arms and legs of the root and a gnar for a head. It is said to be charged with spiritual power. So if you work with roots, the mandrake root is very powerful. I used to love to add me a little mandrake root in there for a little razzle dazzle when I was doing the working. I like me some mandrake root. They say it scream when you pick it. Is that true? I've only ordered mine. Not order. I got it out of a botanica. But I wonder. So anyway, dolls are believed to be infused by life with their makers. I follow a guy named Uncle Brandon, and he makes on TikTok, and he makes dolls like that's supposed to hold like a certain something. And then he was mentioning on one live how sometimes the dolls are buried or sometimes disappear with the owners. And maybe that's kind of the instinction, but I think that's interesting. I'm just tying that into all this right now. So she just goes on to talk about dolls and what they mean, like the little life that's buried inside of humans. So then she talks about the psyche, which works when we sleep. And like the idea that when you go to sleep, like people be like, go to sleep when, take a nap. Maybe you'll wake up with a better idea. You're going to the other realm, your psyche, getting some type of insight, honey. Now, what that was for? So the doll represents the inner spirit of us as women, the voice of inner reason, inner knowing, and inner consciousness. This is the wisdom of the homunculus, the small being within. Your intuition. Intuition senses the directions to go in for most benefit. It is self-preserving, has a grasp of underlying motive and intention, and it chooses what will cause the least amount of fragmenting in the psyche. I had a lot highlighted here. Okay. Being bound to one's intuition promotes a confident reliance on it. No matter what, it changes a woman's guiding attitude from what will be to let me see all there is. What does this wildest intuition do for women? Like the wolf, intuition has claws that pry things open and pin things down. It has eyes that can see through the shields of persona. It has ears that hear beyond the range of mundane human hearing. With these formidable psychic tools, a woman takes on a shrewd and even precognitive animal consciousness, one that deepens her femininity and sharpens her ability to move confidently in the outer world. Truth. What does one feed intuition? So in the story, her mom told her to feed the dog. Not the dog. Feed the dog, Fred. Feed the dog. Feed the doll. She tells her to feed the doll. But if you feed your intuition, what she's basically saying is you are feeding it by following it. Like if you don't follow it or you let people make decisions for you all the time, then you don't feed the intuition, to basically break it down. What does one feed intuition so that it is consistently nourished and responsive to our requests to scan our environs? One feeds it life. One feeds it life by... One feeds it life by... Where are we? I looked away, y'all. One feeds it life by listening to it. One feeds it life. What good is a voice without an ear to receive it? What good is a woman in the wilds of megatropolis or daily life unless she can hear and depend upon the voice of La Que Sabe? I took Spanish in high school and college. La Que Sabe, the one who knows. But I got a little southern twang to my shit, so don't judge me. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. Okay. I don't. Maybe I did not need all that, but I did. No, I don't approve. Okay. Y'all, I'm saying, they did. Y'all notice how most stores don't carry seeded watermelon anymore and how crazy that is? And Interlude, ADHD moment. Like, we are so over consumerized. Is that a word? Is that a way to say that? They're like, we can't even appropriately wait for harvest. Like, they got to create, like, fake shit because nobody wants to wait for things to fucking grow. Okay. But I did find me a fresh seed of watermelon for the 4th of July or a good day to barbecue and meet my ancestors. Okay. So now that that's over. Okay, I said, I've heard women say it, if not 100 times, then 1,000 times. I knew I should have listened to my intuition. I'd be saying, I'm like, damn, I should have listened to my first mind. But what get in the way of your first mind typically be your ego. So, shit happens. I sense that I should not have done such and such, but I didn't listen. We feed the deep intuitive self by listening to it and acting upon its advice. It is a personage in its own right, a magical dollish-sized being which inhabits the psychic land of the interior woman. In this way, it is like the muscles in the body. Yep. If a muscle is not used, eventually it withers. Intuition is exactly like that. Without food, without employment, it atrophies. It atrophies. Atrophies. The feeding of the doll is an essential cycle of the wild woman archetype. She who is the keeper of hidden treasures. Vasilisa feeds the doll in two ways. First, with a bit of bread, a bit of life for this new psychic adventure. And secondly, by finding her way to the old wild mother, the Baba Yaga, the old witch, the intuitive one. By listening to the doll at every turn and every fork in the road, the doll indicates which way is home. The doll indicates which way is home. The relationship between the doll and Vasilisa symbolizes a form of empathetic magic between a woman and her intuition. So, with that being said, thank you. This is the thing that must be handled. Okay. The relationship between the doll, This is the thing that must be handed down from woman to woman. This blessed binding, testing, and feeding of intuition. This is a blessed binding, testing, and feeding of the intuition. We, like Vasilisa, strengthen our bond with our intuitive nature by listening inwardly at every turn in the road. Should I go this way or this way? Should I stay or should I go? Should I resist or be flexible? Should I run away or toward? Is this person, event, or venture true or false? Like, and sometimes, like, I be knowing shit. But then, like, sometimes it's like, I be moving out of survival mode, and I hate it. That's one thing that I hate. If a person throws me into survival mode, like, I generally resent them, because a lot of times decisions that you make out of survival mode don't fare well for you. And you tend to make rush decisions or compromise on things or overlook certain shit. Because I look back on a very important event in my life. And to this day, I look back on that shit and I look back on that message that person sent me. And if I had not have been forced into a form of survival, or I had been given time to make a certain decision, I promise you that shit would never have happened. I knew better. Like, I definitely knew better, but I was moving out of survival. It was on some shit like, okay, if I don't do this now, then what else am I gonna do? That's why earlier when she was talking about, like, the idea that certain circumstances can traumatize you into, like, inner knowing or using your intuition, I feel like that's, like, one of those moments. Because had I been nurtured in a different type of way, I knew better, but, like, this is a moment, like, sink or swim, you know what I'm saying? And at that moment, it made sense, you know? It worked even in that moment, but the ramifications, down the line, baby, I look back on that and be like, damn, I wish I hadn't had to act out of survival mode right then. I wouldn't have did that shit, you know? 'Tis life, though, okay? So, and this is, she talks about the breaking of the bond between a woman and her wildest intuition is often misunderstood as the intuition itself being broken. This is not the fact. It is not intuition which is broken. And that's funny that I just said it before I even twisted onto this page. Like, most people was coming at me on some shit with that situation. Like, you ain't know no better. Da-da-da-da-da. Yes, the fuck I knew better, but guess what? Which is broken, but rather the matrilineal blessing on intuition, the handed down of intuitive reliance between a woman and all females of her lines who have gone before her. It is that long river of women that has been dammed. A woman's grasp of her intuitive wisdom may be weak as a result, but with exercise, it will come back and become fully manifested. Truth. Yeah, that was a life lesson. That was a life lesson for shit, for sure. Cause, like, I was survival mode in that moment, and that shit wasn't cool. That shit wasn't cool at all. That shit wasn't cool, period, okay? I didn't like that. So, the doll, she goes on to talk about how a woman's grasp of her intuitive wisdom may be weak as a result, but with exercise, etc. Y'all, why am I keep throwing me off? The fuck? The dolls serve as talismans. So she talks about the doll being a talisman. So this is another interesting point I thought was interesting about Clarissa. She talks about talismans, which obviously talismans are probably, other occult, but I just didn't know she got deep with this. So I'm interested to see where other points in the book that she goes on and talks about more like occult stuff. Because I was like, okay. And I say that because one of the reviews was like, oh, she talking about God too much. Or what? No. This one talks about God too. No, you know who they were talking about? They were talking about the artist way. Well, but she had said that you could call it whatever you wanted. She just is used to calling it God. She like specifically in the intro says, call it what you want to call it, and somebody still fucking complain. Again, with the notion you just can't please everybody. So, she talks about the doll as a talisman. Talismans are reminders of what is felt but not seen, what is so but is not immediately obvious. The talismanic numen of the image of the doll reminds us, tells us, sees ahead for us. This intuitive function belongs to all women. It is a massive and fundamental receptivity, not receptivity as once touted in classical psychology, that is as a passive vessel, but receptivity as in possessing immediate access to a profound wisdom that reaches down in women's very bones. The fourth task, facing the wild hag, being able to stand the face of the fearsome wild goddess without wavering. So when you gotta step into it and you be out there on your own and you be dealing with that crazy shit that life be throwing at you, and you gotta be like, okay, sink or swim, step into your womanhood. So that's the dark night of the soul type shit too. And she learned this while residing at Baba Yaga's house for a while. So she, in Baba Yaga's house, like, she had to do certain things that would cleanse her spirit, cleanse her soul. And they broke that down into metaphors of her sweeping, her washing clothes, etc. So she talks about the idea that the Baba Yaga lives in this home that is made on chicken legs. And she talks about being comfortable with being eccentric. Like, Vasilisa is too unremarkable. She's too middle of the road and needs to twirl and whirl in order to find out what it's like to dance like a crazy chicken once in a while. So like life giving you a little bit of razzle dazzle, or as someone said to me, culture. So these attributes are the main fundaments of the archetypal, because that I is not there, neither is that C. Archetypal psychic of wild women, a joyous and wild life force. Because baby, I turned that into a word. Like, I saw that how I wanted to see that. I surely did. I said, I put that I in that motherfucking C there. I had to go back. Like, that's not what that says. Why did I turn that into that word? Anyway, y'all, this is what Tribe Talk is, y'all. Tribe Talk is, like, not formal at all. If y'all can tell, it's not my typical, like, rundown of, like, okay, intro, like, type podcast. I really just be talking, and shit really be happening that I refuse to cut out, because I'm a real girl. Anyway, this encourages the neglect of intuition, which in turn produces lack of light in the psyche. We must do something then. We must set out into the woods, go find the scary woman, or else one day, as we are nodding down the street, as a manhole cover will snap open and wish we will be snatched by some unconscious thing that will throw us about like a rag, period. Joylessly or otherwise, mostly otherwise, but for good outcome. Yeah, life be teaching you and you be like, oh my God, but then, like, you know what I'm saying, you come out stronger. The giving of the intuitive doll by the original sweet mother is incomplete without the task giving and testing done by the old wild one. Baba Yaga is the marrow of the instinctive and integrated psyche. Baba Yaga is fearsome, for she represents the power of annihilation and the power of the life force at the same time. To gaze into her face is to see that vagina denatata. Oh, hell to the no. Marley, get that stuff. Okay. Vagina denatata. I'm going to spell it. Dentata. Eyes of blood, the perfect newborn child, and the wings of angels all at once. Okay, guys. Brief, small interlude. So, respect in the face of great power is a crucial lesson. A woman must be able to stand in the face of power because ultimately some part of that power will become hers. Vasilisa faces Baba Yaga not obsequiously, not boastfully or filled with braggadocio. Neither running away nor hiding. She presents herself honestly and just as herself. Yeah, so when she was like talking to the lady, she was like cool with it. She wasn't scared. She wasn't nothing. She was just cool. Like, teach me the game, ghost. I'm here to learn. I'll take my initiation. This too nice over-adaptation in women often occurs when they are desperately afraid of being disenfranchised or found unnecessary. So, not her being like herself, avoiding like the idea of being nice. So, just being her, like a healthy balance. And she speaks about how that shit really don't serve you at the end of the day. You know, people be what they be about, no matter whether you give in or not. Most people, anyway. So, her dream is typical of women who are recovering from being too sweet. The first dream demonstrates one side of the wild nature and the benign and bountiful and all that is well within her world. The unconscious in its brilliant way is offering this dreamer an idea about a new way of living that is just not the two-toothed frontal smile of the too nice woman. To face this wild and creative power in ourselves is to gain access to the myriad faces of the subterranean feminine. These belong to us innately, and we may choose to inhabit whichever one serves us at best, whichever time. Like the word wild, the word witch has come to be understood as a pejorative. Is that an error? Because I feel like she wanted to say prerogative. But anyway, I'm not the author. To be understood as a pejorative, but long ago it was a appellation given to both old and young women healers. The word witch deriving from the word wit, meaning wise. Y'all. This was before cultures carrying the one God only religious image began to overwhelm the older pantheistic cultures which understood the deity through multiple religious images of the universe and all its phenomena. But regardless, the ogress, the witch, the wild nature, and whatever other criaturas and integral aspects the culture finds awful in the psyches of women are very blessed things which women often need most to retrieve and bring to the surface. Yo, that's how I feel about the aspect of hoodoo, like in terms of the witch. Like, me and my parental had a brought out debate argument about the word witch. Like, and I even, that just shows, like, as you grow, I don't I don't identify as a witch. I have been called a witch by people in my family though. But I don't identify with that as that word, but I don't take offense to it. And I feel like I picked that up from somewhere. Oh gosh. And I had kind of like picked up that like that darkness, I'm gonna call it, from, if you know, like I'll be giving y'all like major experiences of my family, like, because I be trying to let y'all know how I feel, y'all. Like, just didn't like being called that, because if you was like called that and you were like ostracized, like if you exhibited any type of extra little razzle dazzle, like they be trying to commit your ass. Like, so I think that's why the negative connotation of that word, like, doesn't appeal to women in my family, even though a lot of them have a little extra razzle dazzle. And, you know, I was like probably one of the first to step out. Now, I ain't gonna say one of the first. I am the first in a long time to just step out and do this, like, hoodoo, for lack of better words. They like to say the word witch, but I'm the first person. They normally do normal shit. That don't mean they don't got gifts, you know what I'm saying? They just don't, they ain't with it, like, on, like, some professional or, like, outwardly type team. And that doesn't make them right or wrong. I just am highlighting the fact that I'm probably the only one in my lineage that stepped out and was like, all right, I'm gonna do this part. You know, and I have like other talents, you know, but my biggest trick is being a hoodoo, and I love it. And the very first time I went in a botanica or in a cult store, like, I felt so at home, y'all. We stood in that bitch for hours, like, just looking and reading. And every time I go in there, I drop a bag. Every single time I go. I have to set myself on some type of budget when I go in the store, that type of store, because I be wanting to buy everything. And I knew I was at home. Like, I knew it. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to be here. Oh, yeah, this is what I do. Somewhere in the past life, this is what I did. Because I am much too comfortable in here with the chicken feet and the candles and the crystals. And it is so crazy. Like, the idea that at some point in my life, like, I was fighting that part of myself. Like, even when I was younger, like, before I got intertwined into that culture of where I'm from, I went for a spell and lived somewhere else. Then I came back, and when I initially came back, I was hanging around like the more earthy girls. We was playing with rocks and, you know, crystals and stuff. You know, I was involved in art. And then, like, I morphed because it was on some, like, if you can't beat them, join them type shit, you know. So I became friends with a lot of my bullies. But yo, as I got back to my wild woman archetype or whatever, I enjoy the botanica. I do. I can't wait to have one in the physical. Outside of Sephora, that's like my favorite store. Them and Sephora running a close race. Okay, so a good deal of literature on the subject of women power states that men are afraid of women's power. They are. I always want to exclaim, Mother of God, so many women themselves are afraid of women's power, and are. If men are ever going to understand women are going to have to teach the configurations of the wild feminine to them. To this end, the dream-making function of the psyche carries the yaga and her cohorts right into women's bedrooms at night through the dream time. That's so true. And I was explaining it in my live the other day that I felt like men, you know, even though my audience, and I'm a woman, But men do need to know so that they aren't intimidated by the hoodoo or the goddess or the divine or the witch or the occult. Like, you're not feeling like you're getting taken for a fucking ride because you dealing with somebody with a little extra razzle dazzle. You know? So she talks about all the creatures in the dreams remind the woman dreamer of her elemental self. The Yaga, the enigmatic and intense power of life, death, life mother. And what it means is to be able to learn, to be able to stand what we know. It means to stand and live. The fifth task, serving the non-rationale, which means this is when she talks about Vasilisa doing the work that Baba Yaga asked her to do, which again is metaphorical. Unsoiling, like coming to recognize. Okay, let me read this whole thing. Okay, so staying with the hag, acclimating to the great wildish powers of feminine psyche, coming to recognize her or your power and the powers of inner purifications, unsoiling, sorting, nourishing, building energy and ideas, washing the Yaga's clothes, cooking for her, cleaning her house, and sorting out the elements. The house is you, mind, body, soul. Okay? Baba Yaga, the Wild Mother, is the teacher whom we consult in these matters. She instructs the ordering of the house and the soul. She imbues an alternate order to the ego, one where magic can happen, joy can be done, appetite is intact, things are accomplished with gusto. Baba Yaga is the model for being true to the self. She teaches both death and renewal. To wash something is a timeless purification ritual. It not only means to purify, it also means, like baptism from the Latin baptiza, to drench, to permeate, with a spiritual numen and mystery. An archetypal, I swear for God, I think she mean archetypical. An archetypal symbolism. Clothing represents persona. The first view, the public gaze of us, persona is a kind of camouflage which lets others know only what we wish them to know about us and nothing more. But there is an older meaning of persona, one found in the Mesoamerican rites, one well known to cantadoras y cuentistas y curanderas, healers. The persona is not simply a mask to hide behind, but rather a presence which eclipses the mundane personality. In this sense, persona or mask is a signal of rank, virtue, character, and authority. It is the outward significator, the outward display of mastery. She says she likes this because it requires a woman to cleanse the persona, the clothing of authority of the great Yaga of the forest. She initiates herself, by doing this. A wise woman keeps her psychic environment uncluttered. She accomplishes such by keeping a clear head, keeping a clear place for her work, working at completing her tasks and projects. It took me a long time as I was growing up, and now that I'm a woman, Shanae voice, I'm a lady, to understand when people are talking about cleanliness is next to godliness, because that's so true, and it has to do with the actual physical aspect of cleaning, but also the aspect of keeping your mind clear, your space clear, so that good things can come into those spaces all around. Growing up and really seeing that shit for what it is such an eye-opening moment. Okay, for many women, this task requires that they clear time each day for contemplation. Like I said, mind, body, soul, for a space to live in that is clearly their own paper, pens, paints, tools, conversation, time, freedoms that are for this work only. Sometimes women become confused about soulful work and neglect its architecture till it is taken back by the forest. Like, you just do what you're supposed to do. You don't make time for yourself. You don't make time to, like in the artist way, you don't make time to write your rising papers. You don't make time to go on your artist date. You don't make time to do these other things. You so consumed with the mundane. You're consumed with your day-to-day tasks. You know what I'm saying? And you can't do that. Firstly, to cook for the yaga, one lays a fire. A woman must be willing to burn hot with passion, burn with words, with ideas, with desire for whatever it is that she truly loves. It is actually this passion which causes the cooking, and a woman's original ideas of substance are what is cooked. To cook for the yaga, one must arrange that one's creative life has a consistent fire under it. Most of us would do better if we became more adept at watching the fire under our work, if we watch more closely the cooking process for nourishing the wild self. The fire bearers requires watching, for it is easy to let the flame go out. The yaga must be fed. There's hell to pay if she doesn't. Like, you got to have some time to your motherfucking self to just be. That's what I get from it. Without the fire, our great ideas, our original thoughts, our yearnings and longings remain uncooked, and everyone is fulfilled. If you're not good, ain't nobody good. That's where I get that. And the development of women, all these motions of homekeeping, the cooking, the washing, the sweeping, quantify something beyond the ordinary. All these metaphors offer ways to think about, to measure, feed, nourish, straighten, cleanse, order the soul of life. Women's cycles, according to Vasilisa's tasks, are these: to cleanse one's thinking, renewing one's values on a regular basis; to clear one's psyche of trivia, sweep oneself, clean up one's thinking and feeling states on a regular basis; to build an enduring fire beneath the creative life; and to cook up ideas on a systematic basis means especially to cook, and with originality, a lot of unprecedented life in order to feed the relationship between oneself and the wildest nature. The sixth test, separating this from that. Learning fine discrimination, separating one thing from the other with finest discernment. Learning to make fine distinctions in judgment. Sorting through the milkweed, corn, hold the fuck up. Okay, I had a little dot on my iPad there. Sorting the mildewed corn from the good corn, and sorting the poppy seeds from a pile of dirt. Like, she made her do like little tiggy shit. Observing the power of the unconscious and how it works even when the ego is not aware. The pairs of hands which appear in the air. More learning about life, corn, and death, poppy seeds. Okay, the intuitive doll completes the sorting of one from the other. Sometimes this sorting process occurs at such a deep level it is barely conscious to us until one day. The sorting spoken of in this tale is the kind which occurs when we face a dilemma or question, but not much is forthcoming to help us solve it. So it's like you just know at some point. You built up enough till you just know. It is an observable phenomenon that a question asked before bedtime with practice often elicits an answer upon awakening. There is something in the psyche, something of the intuitive doll, something under, over, or in the collective unconsciousness which sorts the materials while we sleep and dream. And reliance on this attribute is also part of the wild nature. They are facets of the life. Okay, she goes on to talk about the herbs that we use and how they attribute to apothecary work and healing. And she talks about how they are facets of life and death and life cycles. Baba Yaga is not only asking Vasilisa to separate this from that, but to determine the difference between things of like kind, such as real love from false love, nourishing life from spoiled life. But she's also asking her to distinguish one medicine from the other. So when she say one medicine from the other, that's like she gets to talking about like how some of the poppy seeds, like what they did differently. Like, what does dirt do for you? What does poppy seed do for you? What does mildew? Like, mildew corn turns into something. I did not know that. And poppy seeds have their different like ways. So again, like sometimes you need a little bit of something to chill, and other times you only need a little bit of this. Sometimes in order to bring a woman closer to this nature, I asked her to keep a garden, and she talked about how you keeping a garden basically teaches you patience. It teaches you how to connect to life and death, how you gotta work. It teaches you psychological and spiritual lessons. In the garden, one is moving with rather than against. So yeah, that's true, because you gotta work with it. Then against inhalations and the exhalations of greater wild nature. We have the ability to infuse energy and strengthen life, and to stand out of the way of what dies. The seventh task is asking the mysteries, questioning and trying to learn more about life, death, and life nature, and how it functions. Vasilisa asks about the horsemen, learning the truth about being able to understand all the elements of the wild nature. To know too much can make one old too soon. Yeah, because it's like shock value type shit. Like, it's a lot of shit I could have waited to know. And I be telling my kids that too, like, baby, you know what I'm saying? You need to know everything. So when she talked about these parts, so in this story, like, it's like her intuition kind of let her know, like, okay, that's too much for you. That's not something you need to know right now. Maybe along your journey, you'll learn more. She also talks about the colors are symbolic in the story. Like, the girl was asking about, like, the Baba Yaga. The colors were significant: red, black, and white. These were horsemen. And she said they symbolized the ancient colors connoting birth, life, and death. These colors also represent old ideas of descent, death, and rebirth. The black for dissolving of one's old values, the red for sacrifice of one preciously held illusions, and the white as the new light, the new knowing that comes from having experienced the first two. Black is the color of mud, the fertile, the basic stuff into which ideas are sown. Yet black is also the color of death, the blackening of the light. And black has a third aspect. It is the color associated with that world between worlds, which La Loba stands upon, for black is the color of descent. Black is a promise that you will soon know something you did not know before. Red is the color of sacrifice, of rage, of murder, of being tormented and killed. Yet red is also the color of vibrant life, dynamic emotion, arousal, eros, and desire. Yes, it does create Malacy. I learned that in when I did some interior design classes. Like, why are certain restaurants red? Because it like makes you hungry. So there is throughout the world a figure known as the Red Mother. And she is not as known as the Black Mother or the Black Madonna, but she's the watcher of things coming through. She's especially propitiated by those who are about to give birth. For whosoever leaves this world or comes into this world has to pass through her red river. Okay, y'all, let me just say these. Like, she got, like, I don't even want to call them run-on sentences, but a lot of these words run together, and a lot of them are very, as you can see, large. And kind of, you know what I'm saying? So you really gotta be witty. You gotta be up on your reading. White is the color of the new, the pure, the pristine. So, like, give me a little grace, y'all, because I be like, oh my God, it be like 20 words running together, and they be like these. It is also the color of soul free of the body, of spirit unencumbered by the physical. It is the color of the essential nourishment, mother's milk. Conversely, it is the color of the dead, of things which have lost their rosiness, their flush of vitality. When there is white, everything is, for the moment, tabula rasa, unwritten upon. White is a promise that there is nourishment enough for things to begin anew, that the emptiness or the void would be filled. And she did okay right there because it was a lot of commas, semicolons, okay, even a little like italicized to like give me a moment to take it all in. That's why I say you can't read this book and do other shit. It's impossible. Impossible. Okay. The doll and the yaga are the wild mothers of all women. They provide the penetrating, intuitive gifts from the personal level as well as the divine. This is the extreme paradox and teaching of the instinctual nature. It is a sort of wolf Buddhism. There are simply things which cannot be known. Okay. So this is the part where like she talks about basically when Vasilisa was asking her about the horsemen or whatever, the red, black, and the white, and she was kind of telling her, like, she stopped, like her intuition, her inner knowing was kind of telling her, like, don't ask all these questions because everybody ain't meant to know everything. And I tell my kids that all the time too. Everybody not meant to know everything. It's levels to this shit. Okay. By warning Vasilisa away from the question, the doll and the yaga caution Vasilisa about calling upon too much of the numinosity of the underworld all at once. And this is right and proper. For though we visit there, we do not want to be enraptured and thereby trapped there. You feel me? Too much of a good thing, too much of a bad thing. You need a balance. One need not push it. The understanding will come. Some things must be accepted as being out of our reach, even though they act upon us, and we are enriched by them. There is a saying in my family, some things are God's business. Now we have the doll as a teacher on one side and Baba Yaga on the other. Now the 8th task is standing on all fours, taking on immense power to see and affect others, receiving the skull, looking at one's life situations in this new light, finding the way back to the old step family. So this how she teach you how to deal with your shadows, basically. She says Baba Yaga's life, like her land, is the underworld of the psyche. Although sweetness can fit into the wild cannot fit into sweetness. Vasilisa receives a portion of the wild hag's power. Some women are afraid this deep knowing via instinct and intuition will cause them to be reckless or thoughtless, but this is an unfounded fear. I had an old friend, I was telling her about how I was reading some books, and this is when I was like at the beginning of my spiritual journey, and she made this statement, like she's like uber religious, so she made this like statement, and she was like, to know too much knowledge, like it was like some weird ass quote, but it's not something that slips my mind, but to put it in the context, because I don't want to misquote her, but to like put it in the context, she was basically like, I was telling her about some new things I learned, I had been reading, and she was just like, to know too much is like a sin or something like that. But in the way she meant it was like kind of condescending at the time, and I didn't realize that during that conversation. Y'all ever notice how when you like have autism or some type of you're not neurotypical, and people be saying little shit, and like years later or months later you'll like catch it later, and you'll be thinking, or you'll be saying back, you're like, damn, that motherfucker was being funny. like bitch, you was being condescending. I ain't like that. Okay, like rando, but so true. Okay, so she goes on to say, quite the contrary. Lack of intuition, lack of sensitivity to cycles, or not following one's knowing causes choices which turn out poorly, even disastrously. More often, this yagaing kind of knowledge, moves women by small increments, and most often gives direction by conveying clear pictures of what lies beneath or beyond the motives, ideas, actions, or others. You know how some people, like, they just be in a little box and they don't want to know, you know what I'm saying? Even so they can have, like, some sort of, like, judgment, or that just because you know some shit don't mean you gotta follow it. You know what I'm saying? That don't make you a believer. Like, for instance, I follow this woman and she's into, like, demonology. I also have a couple guys come across my timeline. They're more into, like, Wiccan stuff. Like, everybody do their thing, right? Everybody got their thing. Some stuff I find good information. Just because I know about it does not mean that I'm practicing this shit. No shade, all tea. You know? And I feel like it's kind of ignorant to not just close yourself off to something completely because you don't understand it, or like you don't that's not my like yeah, like, to me, that's how she came off that day when we were talking. She was just like on some shit like, oh, that's not my thing, that's not my life, like, that's not my religion, so I don't give a fuck. And I don't know why I'm giving her an accent, because she's not from the UK, but I be like of how people be sounding when they be talking, and, like, you know, it was very stuck up, very pompous ass type of moment for her. Like, I don't think that, you know, that's not part of my Christian religion, so I'm not into it, and I don't ever want to be into it. And she had the same theory about, like, crystals, which this day, now I look back on those conversations, and I'm ashamed of myself for even entertaining it, because, girl, good night. Anyway. Good night. Sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite, bitch, because you're asleep. No, for real. You don't have to believe in something to be educated by it. And a good beacon, even if I want to go back further, I took a class at Auburn where it was a religion, like, ethics, like, class type thing. Anyway, there was an atheist in my class. I was a Southern Baptist at the time, watching TD motherfucking Jakes every Sunday. And there were people that were Pentecostal. There were people that were Catholic. You know, everybody had grown up their different way. And this was the discussion about God and religion and things like that. And so the professor was, like, breaking down, like, the Bible and, like, you know, breaking down the identity or the personality of God. Like, some shit I agree with, some shit I didn't agree with. You know, they didn't stop my belief in God, though. You feel me? So, y'all, that's why it irritates me. Like, I mean, my mind is very open to a lot of stuff. But just because I know about demonology don't mean I practice it. You feel me? You feel what I'm putting down? Okay, so if the instinctive psyche warns, beware, then the woman must take heed. But you can't develop this instinctive psyche if, like, you don't open your mind to all the levels. That's what I'm getting at. If the deep intuition says, do this, do that, go this way, stop here, go forward, the woman must make corrections to her plans as needed. You can't do that if you boxed in a circle, okay? How you boxed in a circle, Raji? How is that even a thing? Okay, if you boxed in, you can't do that. You can't make an accurate move, you know? You got to know all the plans. You got to know all the parts to see how they work and how they function. Intuition is not to be consulted once and then forgotten. It is not disposable. It is to be consulted at all steps along the way. Whether the woman's work be clashing with the demon in the interior or completing a task in the outer world, it does not matter whether a woman's concerns and aspirations are personal or global. Before all else, every action begins with strengthening the spirit. The skulls represented an old archetype called ancestral worship, which is if you in hoodoo, you know what I'm talking about. Now, this is interesting because the skulls on the sticks with the fire, that look just like the 9 of sticks in my hoodoo tarot deck. So I was like, damn, that's so interesting. They look scary, but they really the ancestors standing behind her in the card. Okay. So she talks about that. So this is the ascent From the initiation of deep intuition. Intuition has been set into Vasilisa like a center jewel in the crown. So once you go through the process, you also, you have your ancestors, that your elevated ancestors, they have your back. Okay. And she goes on to talk about how these shadows of your ancestors, while you may be afraid of those processes, they help you, to light the way, even when you're afraid. So that's another element of intuition, right? So she's managed to lead the protection of her own inner too-good mother, learn to expect and deal with adversity in the outer world in a powerful rather than complicit manner. She has become aware of her own shadowy, inhibitory stepmother and stepsisters and the destruction they mean to do her. She has negotiated through the light while listening to her inner voice and has been able to stand the face of the hag, which is the side of her own nature, but also the powerful wild nature. Thus, she is enabled to understand awesome and conscious power, her own and that of others. No more, but I'm afraid of him, her, it. She has served the hag goddess of the psyche, fed the relationship, purified the persona, and kept clear thinking. Okay? Y'all, hold on. Oh my Lord, this was a long chapter, y'all. Oh my God. I'm almost done, though, y'all. I promise. It's good though. I'm making points. So the ninth cast is recasting the shadows. So this be like the test, right? You learn, you go home, you got your ancestors, you got your mama, you got your dark night of the soul, and then, you got your experience, and you go through another test. Now, says she was kind of scared of what she found out, so she almost throws the skull away, but it reassures her to keep it, right? Using one's acute vision, fiery eyes to recognize and react to the negative shadow of one's own psyche and or negative aspect of persons and events in the outer world. Recasting the negative shadows in one's psyche with hag fire, the wicked step family, which formerly tortured Vasilisa, is turned to cinders. Now, a fiery light emanates from the eyes, ears and nose and the mouth of the skull. It is also another representation of all the psychic processes which have to do with discrimination. So the skull is another representation of intuition. It does not hurt the Yaga or Vasilisa. It has a discrimination of its own. Vasilisa now carries the blaze of knowing. She has those fierce senses. She can hear, see, smell, and taste things out. And she has herself. She has the doll. She has Yaga sensibilities. Now she has the fiery skull as well. Momentarily, Vasilisa becomes afraid of the power she carries when she was like, should I put this motherfucker down? With this formidable power at her behest, i.e. knowledge, it is no wonder the ego thinks perhaps it would be better, easier, safer to discard this burning light. For it is too much, and through it, Vasilisa has become so much. Y'all get what I'm saying? See, that's what the rant I was going on about the person, like, not wanting to know certain shit. Like, why you don't want to know? But a supernatural voice from the skull instructs her to stay calm and proceed. Each woman who retrieves her intuition and Yaga-like power reaches a point where she is tempted to throw them away. For what is the use of seeing and knowing all these things? This skull light is not forgiving. In its light, the old are elderly, the beautiful lush, the silly foolish, the drunk are drunken, the unfaithful are infidels, things which are incredible are noticed as miracles. Skull light sees what it sees. It is an eternal light, and right out front, shining ahead of a woman like a presence which goes a little bit before her and reports back to her what it has found ahead. It is her perpetual reconnaissance. Reconnaissance. It's like Renaissance, except with a C and an O and an E before the traditional NAISSANC. Okay, girl. Okay, Clarissa. Baby, what type of shrooms you was on when you was writing these? Then why I say I need a and I get ready to write, and I do want to write a book. I swear I do. But I really feel like I would probably smoke a blunt and it would get detailed just like this. I ain't judging you because I feel like my mind will go like this too. But this is not like, I don't think it is. And she was in the desert when she was writing this too. So there was wine, there was a blunt or two, there was some shrooms, there was something. Because this shit deep. The words, the way she flow them together. So anyway, yet when one sees and senses thusly, then one has to work to do something about what one sees. To possess good intuition, goodly power, causes work. It causes work firstly in the watching and comprehending of negative forces and imbalances both inward and outward. Secondly, it causes striving in the gathering up of will in order to do something about what one sees, be it for good or balance, or to allow something to live or die. It is true, I will not lie to you, it is easier to throw away the light and go back to sleep. It is true, it is hard to hold the skull light before us sometimes, for with it we clearly see all sides of ourselves and others, both the disfigured and the divine, and all conditions in between. Yet with this light, the miracles of deep beauty in the world and in humans come to consciousness. With this penetrating light, one can see past the bad aspect to the good heart. One can envy the sweet spirit crushed beneath hatred. I know this ain't gonna go into the third segment. Good Lord. This light can differentiate. I'm talking about the on the timestamp, y'all. This light can differentiate later layers of personality, intention, and motives in others. It can determine consciousness and unconsciousness in self and others. It is the wand of knowing. It is the mirror in which all things are sensed and seen. It is the deep, wild nature. Yet there are times when the reports are painful and almost too much to bear. For also the fiery skull points out where there are betrayals brewing, where there is faintness of courage in those who speak otherwise. It points out envy lying like cold grease behind a warm smile. It points out the looks which are mere masks for dislike. As regard oneself, its light is equally bright. It shines on our treasures and our foibles. It is these knowings which are the most difficult to face. It is at this point that we always want to know, always want to throw away all these damnable shrewd knowing of ours. It is here that we feel, if we will not ignore it, a strong force from the self saying, do not throw me away, keep me, you'll see. That's so true. So true. So true. When you born with the gift, like one of my gifts that I don't really care for, like I don't, like I care for it, but I don't, and sometimes I will overlook it, and I get these like DNA type shit because I have an innate like gift to see people's shadows and the light and the dark of people. And when I was younger in mind, body, and spirit, I would assume just because I could see that I could control those natures or those possibilities of things. And in reality, I had to learn not to walk into it. Just because I could see it didn't mean I could like hold it in my hand. But to be like, to have that claircognizance, to just know, to feel like, you know, and you develop other clairs. But yes, baby, I had that one clair. Ooh, and sometimes I just turn it off just because, like, who wants to be able to do that all the time? And it makes it very uncomfortable to see people in that way. And oftentimes I will just try to ignore it. It's a very interesting gift to have, like, all the time. I'll tell you that. They are reduced. Okay, then she talks about the senders of the life, death, and life mother. Yeah. Okay, this is important. This is very important. Oh, y'all, we getting down to the last 10 minutes. I know I keep interrupting, but I cannot simply just read y'all these and just not break it down. It has to be broke down so it can forever be broke. Okay, so we can get this. So there is another side of the destructive, draining step family. One cannot keep the consciousness one has earned by meeting the head goddess, carrying the fiery light, and so forth. If one lives with cruel people outwardly or inwardly. I think this is the most important part of this chapter. If you are surrounded by people who cross their eyes and look with disgust up at the ceiling when you are in the room, when you speak, when you act and react, then you are with people who douse passions, yours and probably their own as well. True, these are not the people who care about you, your work, or your life. A woman must choose her friends and lovers wisely, for both become like a bad stepmother and rotten stepsisters. In the case of our lovers, we often invest them with the power of a great a great magi. This is easy to do, for if we become truly intimate, it is like unlocking a lead crystal atelier, a magic one, or so it feels to us. A lover can engender or destroy even our most durable connections to our own cycles and ideas. The destructive lover must be avoided. A better sort of lover is one finely wrought of strong psychic muscle and tender flesh. For a wild woman, it also helps as the lover is just a little bit psychic too, a person who can see into her heart. When the wildish woman has an idea, the friend or lover will never say, well, I don't know, sounds really dumb, grandiose, undoable, expensive. To me, a right friend will never say that. They might say instead, I don't know if I understand. Tell me how you see it. Tell me how it will work. Yeah, I look back now and I look on conversations where I was telling people I was going to do certain shit and the way they responded was weird. Okay? It was giving oppie outside. A lover and a friend who support the creatura in you, these are people you're looking for. They will be the friends of your soul for life. Mindful choosing of friends and lovers, not to mention teachers, is critical to remaining conscious, remaining intuitive, remaining in charge of the fiery light that sees and knows. The way to maintain one's connection to the wild is to ask yourself, what is it that you want? This is the sorting of the seed from the dirt. One of the most important discriminations we can make in this matter is the difference between things that beckon to us and things that call from our souls. So, what do you want? Why do you want it? Who do you want? Why do you have such a gusto for that? And to make this decision, thing from thing, it takes spirit, will, soulfulness, and it often means holding out for what one wants. Further, intuition provides options. When you are connected to the instinctual self, you always have at least 4 choices. The 2 opposites, then the middle ground, and taken under further contemplation. If you're not vested in the intuitive, you may think you only have one choice, and that it seems an undesirable one. And perhaps you feel that you ought to suffer about it and submit and force yourself to do it. No, there's a better way. Listen to the inner knowing, the inner seeing, the inner being. Follow it. It knows what to do next. Spontaneity doesn't mean being unwise. Being real doesn't mean being reckless. It means allowing la voz mythologica, the mythological voice, to speak. One does this by shutting off the ego for a while and letting that which wishes to speak. All beings could be called little wild mothers. All these human beings. So she talks about how you meet certain people that are called into your soul that kind of be a catalyst for change. And to wrap it up, the wild woman is the one who dares, who creates, and who destroys. She is the primitive and inventing soul that makes all creative acts and arts possible. She creates a forest around us, and we begin to deal with life from that fresh and original perspective. So here at the end of the resetting of the initiation into the feminine psyche, we have a young woman with formidable psyche who have We have a young woman with formidable experiences who has learned to follow her knowing. She has endured through all of the tasks of a full initiation. The crown is hers. Perhaps recognizing intuition is the easier of the task, but holding it in consciousness and letting live what can live and letting die what must die is by far the more strenuous yet so satisfying aim. Baba Yaga is the same as the mother of the world and another life goddess, Mother Nyx. She's the creator. So, to let things die is a theme at the end of the tale. Vasilisa has learned well. Does she collapse into a fit of high-pitched shriekings as the skull burns into the malicious ones? No. What must die, dies. How does one make such a decision? One just knows. La que sabe, knows. Acts within for her advice. She's the mother of the ages. Nothing surprises her. She's seen it all. For most women, to let die is not against their natures. It is only against their training. This can be reversed. We all know in Los Ovorijos, when it is time for life, when it is time for death. We might try to fool ourselves for various reasons, but we know. By the light of the fiery skull, we know. So that's the end of that chapter. Y'all, oh my God. I got like 10 minutes and I'm going to wrap it up. So to put it to test, like, she breaks like the idea of retraining your intuition down so intricately that, yes, you really got to think to like see, you know what I'm saying? Like what she talking about. It's interesting. I ain't gonna say it's a bit much. It's needed. But baby, I was like, oh my Lord. And honestly, it's needed. You feel me? What she's putting down is needed. Like giving you these short stories, breaking this down in ways that you can kind of see on a cultural landscape, on a generational landscape, how developing your intuition is very important through all phases of your life, and how trauma and life and nurturing, nature versus nurturing, is essential to that, you know? So I enjoyed this chapter just like I enjoyed the others. Like I said, it was a little less it was a little less like In the next chapter tomorrow, we'll talk about the mate union with the others, the hymn for the wild man. Now baby, this should be interesting. I ain't gonna read it yet. I'm gonna read it tomorrow, so we can be fresh in the mind, because y'all can see some of the, ooh, Jesus. But you know, you do need your intuition now. You need your intuition, and you get your intuition from your shadows, from experiences, from your hopes and your dreams, from your spirit team, from, you know, which are your ancestors, from your matrilineal and your patrilineal aspects of your raising, your rearing. So I agree. You know what I'm saying? Tap in the comments. Tell me what y'all think. Y'all don't be mad at me now about, you know, dipping off. I try to keep this part of the podcast as real as humanly possible. Not too real, but real enough. So I'm going to dip off. I'm going to do stuff. And, you know, I don't like it to be as formal. So I hope that don't bother y'all. But yes, the shadow work that I am doing right now, along with you guys, to get back to myself 150%, is to face those parts of my story that coincide with these short stories and stuff like that. And again, I did have some key points. So let me know what you got going on in the comments. Let me know how this, you know, resonated with you. If you got a chance to read it, let me know. Let me know about the parts that I read to you. Don't talk about my accent, y'all. Not that I care. I love my southern accent, but sometimes it do be chopping up certain words. Oh, Jesus. Eating them up, baby. Eating them up. So, yes, I enjoyed you guys, and I pray that these passages, my stories, gave you some type of clarity on an insight into your own journey of tapping back into your raw intuition and the tasks that you need to go. There are 9 complete tasks that you need to do to step back into that. Okay. So yes, that is all. And we will, as you always know, we will most definitely chat soon. Bye.